Welcome to the Soul Star Podcast with your spiritual besties, Allie and Mandy. We're here to make your spiritual journey fun, relatable, and inspiring. So let's raise your vibe and ignite your soul together.
Hi, and welcome back to the Soul Star Podcast for another week of fun discussion.
Chitty chat.
Chitty chat.
Some cackles.
Some more cackles. We were not here last week, and we're sorry. Again,
we're just dropping the ball.
Life is lifing. It's super busy right now, and we're doing the best we can. So thank you for your patience, for your understanding. We're here. We're doing it. We have one more, Claire, to discuss. No, we're going to do one more after this about like the
not so popular,
the riff-raff,
not so common, the riff-raff Claire.
The riff-raff Claires
that nobody talks about.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. But we're going to do this is the last one of the main ones. And then we'll do like a combo of some of like the not so common ones.
Yes.
In the next one. So that'll be awesome.
Yeah. So what are we talking about today?
Clairaudience. Kind of my favorite.
The way you made that sound, it sounded so like, I don't know, luxurious.
Ooh,
or like royal.
Audience.
Clairaudience.
Instead of it being clairvoyance as being the star, we're saving the best for last. Clairaudience. That's why I made it. So, Mandela, what is clairaudience?
Okay, clairaudience is the intuitive sense of hearing guidance from beyond the physical. So the word comes from clair, which means clear, and audience, which means hearing. And it's the ability to hear your messages from your higher self and your spirit guides and divine consciousness, or whoever you're communicating with, whatever is whispering in your ear.
Not a demon.
Not a demon.
Which
definitely not.
Some people think
this is that's true.
There is. Yeah, people are like, you're not connected to that. You're connected to a demon. And it's like, no. I just read a post the other day on that. Somebody was talking and that you're connected to a demon. They're like, no, hun, I'm not connecting to a demon. I can tell the difference. But I was like, oh my God.
That's true.
I know. Yeah. So it's hearing, connecting to them. And hearing. So is it physical hearing?
No. So, and this is what's confusing at the beginning when you first start learning about your intuition and how you're receiving your messages, is because you expect it to be an audible sound, like an audible voice, like you're hearing somebody else's voice speaking to you from outside of your ear.
Or even inside in your head. Like you're just expecting that.
It's not the case.
Thank God.
But I have to say, when people like back in the day, or even still, some people hear voices in their heads.
Absolutely.
It can get busy in there.
It can get busy in there. And I know, because that's the thing. Like, I feel like intuition at times can like be balanced on this like fine line of like insanity.
True.
And or intuition, right? Like it kind of just like balances there, that it's like, like obviously if there's people that have multiple personalities or schizophrenia, like there's clinical things that you do hear voices in your head, or you're being told to do certain things. And that's where I'm like, my God, it's such a fine line of differentiating between like, am I losing my shit, or is this my intuition coming in?
And I think we can take it back to your intuition is very calm and very soft and very subtle and just more matter of fact, where anything else is going to be fear-based or fast-paced or like chaotic. And it's just like, that's not your intuition.
And repeat. That's not your intuition. Like intuition comes in and it's just factual.
Yeah. It is what it is, and it's a statement typically, and it's just that. But also, with that being said, when you start having conversations with your spirit guide and you're listening to them clairaudiently, it can be more of like a conversational flow, but their answers are usually very matter of fact.
And blunt. And I think that's where like when you're having, so like with H, I see him as being so like stern and stoic. And I think part of that is because spirit is just, they just say it. And my human associates that type of communication as somebody that's just like, are you angry with me? Like that type of thing, when somebody's just kind of blunt and just stating the facts, and you're like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And they just state it. And then you're like, that's it. Like, there's nothing else. And it's like, what do you want? And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I just like, so that's where that intimidates me. But now I know that that's him, or even just spirit, because they state it. It's just a statement. They don't have emotions attached to it in that sense, right?
Yeah. So it's not going to come in as like a booming voice. It's often a quiet, like inner voice, a mental whisper, if you will. That's a good way to put it.
I like that.
Yeah. Or even lyrics or words that can carry a message. So if you ever get like a song stuck in your head and it's like, like that worm, what do they call the earworm? And it's like wrote this, like, you just can't get this song, or you're hearing like lyrics in your head. Usually that's a message from spirit. So pay attention to the lyrics that you're receiving, because that's what you're doing, is you're receiving a message.
Okay. So I've had this song stuck in my head for a while. Tell me the message behind it. Okay. Hot dog, hot diggity dog.
Oh, that's Mickey Mouse Clubhouse.
It's been nonstop. I'm like, hot dog, hot diggity dog. All the time.
I think you need to eat a hot dog.
I did.
I did.
And it's just been like, there's been so many times I've just been singing it, and I'm like, can you shut up? Like, I'm annoyed with myself. I
feel like that's that's Cody messing with you.
I'm like, stop.
It's so funny.
Just like every opportunity, I'm like, and I'm like, shut up.
Maybe it's just there to remind you to have some fun, because his life been a little bit serious.
I know it has been a little bit serious. Don't look at my faded camera.
Yeah, you're blurry again.
I know. I'm like, I saw you looking at me.
I had when I was younger, so as a teenager, remember the song TLC Waterfalls? Don't go chasing waterfalls. That song was stuck in my head for a fucking week. And I was so irritated with it that I couldn't get it out of my head. That like it obviously made an impact on me, because I remember it today, 25 plus years later. And I'm like, now I go back and I'm like, I wonder why that song was stuck in my head. So I listened to the lyrics again, and then I was like, okay, this was around the time when I was this age, and oh yeah, I could see how like don't go chasing waterfalls, stick to the something and the something that you're used to. Like it was trying to keep me on track. Like don't just stay on track, Mandy.
Oh, I love that. That's so cool though, right? Like it is like, and so it's recognizing when that kind of happens. I'm going to start paying more attention to when the song's not the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, but something else.
That's so funny. I feel like you probably have a lot of songs rolling around in that head of yours.
I have a lot. Yes, I do. I do notice that all day, every day, I will just sing different songs, and I'll make up songs from words that people say. And I didn't realize I did it until my kids pointed it out, and now I recognize it, and I'm like, holy shit, I do this a lot. all the time I'm like, oh my God. I think one of the things with like clairaudience, so it's your own voice in your mind, right, but with truth and clarity behind it. And then like we're saying, the message can come through with song lyrics or a phrase you can't get out of your head. That would be annoying too. Or even it's like a sudden sentence that drops in out of nowhere. Hearing your name when no one is around. Oh God, I've heard that. I've heard that like
audibly.
So
when we say when your clairaudience is not audible, typically, but there's definitely moments where it's loud enough where it sounds like it's audible or coming from somewhere else.
Yes. So I remember, and that one, it's like a unique.
It feels like it's coming from behind you, like your inner ear almost.
But it feels like it's coming from outside, right?
Like it sounds loud enough. Yeah.
Yeah. So inside your head, like the clairaudience is very much like inside. It's your own, it's like you're having thoughts. It's like your own inner chatter happening in your head. That's what there's just a difference in frequency. And that's the hardest thing, is differentiating between your own inner chatter and spirits, talking to you, right? Because there's a combination. But the audible part, to me, it's only been like a mom, it's just like a fast, it's not like I've heard like mom, blah, 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 like a talking. It's like one word, whether it's Allie, whether it's mom. And it's just like, and I remember realizing that it wasn't actually somebody talking to me, because I had earbuds in, but it was clear as day, as if I didn't have earplugs in. And I was like, this was outside of myself. But if it was outside of myself, it would have been muffled by my earplugs. And then I'm like, what the fuck was that? And I've had that like a few times. It's crazy.
I've had it. I think that happens a lot when your clairaudience is activating. Because I remember earlier in my journey, it would happen not often, but sporadically, I guess. And it was always loud enough where it kind of jolted me.
It jolted, yes. I've had it like when I've been sleeping and I've thought one of my kids was standing over me or trying to wake me up. And I'm like, what the fuck? And then just like, I remember we were probably doing something like this on Zoom, earbuds in, talking. And then it was like outside of me. And I was like, oh my God, thinking one of my kids was there. Like, what's going on? So crazy. That one's, it's kind of cool, but yeah. And that one does sound like a different voice.
Yes. Yes, it does. So
Yeah.
we've confused you. Sorry about that. Just kidding.
It's kind of true.
That one's just not as common, but it happens. So yeah. So what we're talking about today is going to be what most commonly happens, or what we most commonly experience when we're connecting to our clairaudience, or we're activating our clairaudience. And then that outside voice that jolts you is just very sporadic and random. That's really all there is to explain about that. I don't know anybody that hears that on a regular when they're talking to spirit in any form. So.
I feel like that when that happens, it's actually a spirit around you that's trying to get your attention. That maybe necessarily doesn't even have anything to do with you, but can sense that you are, like able.
Their way of like shoving you.
Totally. Yeah, totally. And it's like piercing the veil. Like it feels like it comes through and it pierces through the veil, but that's all you get. And then it's like gone. Yeah.
They're probably on the other side being like, oh my God, look at the power I have.
Oh, look at this.
Do that again.
And
I'm going to go test this over here.
Oh my God, I would do that all the time.
I will haunt you when I die, if I die before you. Just so you know.
You better.
And I will scream words at you random.
Oh my God, when I'm sleeping?
Yes.
That's not very nice.
I'm just kidding, but for anybody that I know that listens to this podcast, you can't
not
expect
kidding.
Me. I will haunt you.
Yeah, I will too.
For fun. It'll be funny haunting.
It'll totally be funny.
I'm going to like flicker your lights.
Yep. I'm going to take items and hide them.
Yeah.
I'm a practical joker in real life, so just wait.
I feel like I will be the same.
I'm gonna like, get like makes the air smell like a fart.
But do you notice that area where we live? There's an area that always smells like fart.
Ew,
right by close to where you live, actually.
Yes. Oh, it's because of the Fortis gas.
Oh, it's disgusting.
It is disgusting. When you drive past it and you're like, oh God, it smells like a big old fart. It's like, I'm going to be that pocket of warm air.
It smells like fart
air in the pool when you're swimming and you go into the pool. And
I'm going to be the cloud of pee in the pool.
I love to go up to Tanner and I'm like, hey, if you notice a bubble of like warm water, I peed there.
And you're probably not lying.
I love doing what anytime that he comes over and he's like, oh God, I just felt the warm air. I'm like, that was me. I peed there.
You're so funny. Oh my God.
It's so fun.
Okay.
Okay. So like, so as an intuitive, receiving clairaudiently.
Yeah.
How does that like feel coming in? What does that kind of look like when you're connecting to somebody's energy and you're trying to receive insight
Great
on
question.
them?
Great question, Allison. Let me tell you.
Yeah. Okay.
So I notice it feels different. Like we talk about the subtlety and the frequency shift. So typically if I'm receiving clairaudiently, there's two ways that I receive clairaudiently. One is through meditation when I've gone in and I'm journeying with my spirit guide and I'm asking questions and I'm receiving answers. Also, we do that when we're reading for a client.
Yeah.
We're in their energy and we're with our guides and their guides and we're asking questions and we're receiving. So it really feels like the energy is sitting kind of like on the side, like by my ear. So my inner ear, it's not outside of me. It's just kind of like comes from here, like from back here, right? It's not
Yeah.
coming from my front, like my mind.
Yeah.
Which is where the busyness happens. And I know that when the energy is busy and I'm forcing things, like the energy is sitting up here, right? In my forehead, in my mind. But when I'm receiving clairaudiently, it feels like it's just coming in gently from behind my ears or whatever. So that's how it feels to me. And then the frequency does feel calmer, and slower and just more matter of fact. And it sounds like my own voice. Like I'm not hearing anybody else's voices, but sometimes the answers I receive are not answers that I would like, not the way that I would say it.
Yeah.
Right. Or the way that I would expect it to be. Yeah. The way that I would speak. It's sometimes more, well, you get more like, I don't know, philosophical answers.
I know. It's so annoying. Yeah.
And I get ones that are meant to like make me laugh, kind of.
Yeah.
It's based on our guides, right?
Totally. And so like I have found like in readings or when I'm writing out what I was like receiving, and then all of a sudden it will be like it's dropping in while I'm writing. So that's automatic writing, but it's like I can hear the words and I'm writing them out, and it's so philosophical that it's like I do not speak like this. And it's cheesy in my mind.
Deer. I get a lot of deer or
yes, dear. Yes. Yeah. And it's just kind of like I'm writing it going like, okay, that is literally spirit talking, because I would never talk like this. Like, and even just the way, because I always kind of find like spirit is so, like we get so stuck in our human small problems, like in their view, we get really stuck in like in loops of things that just don't matter in the big scheme of things. So that's what I find sometimes when you're connecting and trying to get answers for a client or something, and then they're kind of like, and then they'll go philosophical, they'll bring it up to the bigger picture and kind of be like, yeah, but blah, blah, blah. And then you're like, dude, I just want the answer to the human experience, not the soul experience. But that's where it's like the words kind of like come in and you're just like, okay, that's what they're saying.
That's also how you know what you're receiving is true. You know what I mean? When you start receiving things that you never would, like the way that in a way that you would never speak it, or when it becomes bigger picture and you're like, I'm now understanding the holistic view of what their question is.
Yeah.
Like that's when you know what you're receiving is valid, because there's no way that your little human brain is going to make this story up for this person you don't know, or for yourself or whatever it is that you're receiving for, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I have found like in readings, if I'm trying to receive something and I'm like trying to have an image, so my clairvoyance, I'm like trying to connect to the image and I'm like, what? And then I'm getting frustrated because if it's not coming in clearly or I'm not understanding, it's like I will switch and be like, okay, H, I'm like, just tell me. Right. Like, let's stop with the things. Just like, tell me what's going on. And it will kind of like, I'll switch that part off and be like, just tell me, is this? And I just ask point blank questions. And then I get the yes, no, are they having a boy or girl, and it just like, it just comes in and it's like, how you like play those like games where it's like, answer before you even think about it. It's kind of like that, where it's like, is it boy or girl? And it's like, but he's answering it.
That's a great point, because I remember when I first started recognizing my clairaudience, it was because I started receiving the answers clairaudiently. Like I started hearing the answers before I could actually ask the question.
Yeah.
Before I could finish answering the question. So like spirit knows what you're going to ask. Because it's a vibration, it's an energy. They know what you're going to ask, but our human brains have to ask the whole thing and say all the words. But if you're receiving the answer before you even get to finish the sentence, that's a huge validation that you're receiving clairaudiently, because you just received the answer before you could even ask it.
Yeah. Well, I used to fight that too.
I know. A lot of people do. They think that you have to ask the question in order for spirit to know what you're asking.
You're like, it must be wrong.
Yeah, spirit already knows what you're asking. And I remember the very first time I experienced this was when I met my spirit guide, and I was working with my mentor at the time, and she took me through the guided meditation and blah, blah, blah. And then I was in the place of nature, and then I had some time to ask questions. And one of the first questions I asked was, what was your name? But I got to what is your name? And I got to and I heard Cody. And
then you're like,
hey, and I'm like, what? And so I had to ask my mentor, and I was like, well, she's like, did you get a name? I was like, yeah, Cody, but I didn't get to finish asking the question. And so she validated for me in that moment, of course, that's usually how it works. Or it will work that way, not all the time, but and I was like, okay. So it felt good to know that, because intuitively I knew, but then I was just at the beginning of my journey. So, with my ego and my hesitation and I don't know what I'm doing, I didn't like trust.
Yeah, absolutely. All the time. I'm like, so many times I would kind of be like, okay, like I didn't trust where it would just like come in and you're like, I didn't even finish. So let's do this again. And I could just see them on the other side. Like, and part of me is kind of like, how rude. Let me finish my sentence. Okay. Because like, if we were in person sitting across from each other and you're asking me a question, I'm like, yes. You're like, okay, can you stop? Like, it's so rude. And so like, that's just how like, matter of fact.
That's so true. But I feel like if you were to think about what telepathy would feel like, that's what it would feel like. Because you are just sending a vibrational imprint over to each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If there is no physical words, it's just an imprint, and you're just receiving a download of whatever it is.
Absolutely.
You're asking, and then you just answer the question. I feel like I've done that to people where they're talking, and then I'll answer them before they're done their question, because I know what they're asking. And it is rude in our human self. So my apologies to all the people.
I know, where you're just like, oh yeah, I know. It's so crazy. I'm like, I remember one time, like we were like when we were training, and somebody had asked a question, and we were all to go into go off and receive an answer for them. And I remember, I think it was something like, should I take this job or should I just leave it? And so I remember going into, and I'm like, all right, I'm settling into my space. And I'm like, so should she take, and it was like, no. And then I'm like, okay. I'm like, can I finish the question? Or I said, can I get more? And it was like, why? And I'm like, what? And then it was my first time realizing that H did not like kind of like the surface.
He doesn't like the jibber jabber.
Yeah. The superficial or something. Cause I don't remember what it was. It was something that was just kind of like, in the big scale of things, it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
And so that was the first time I kind of experienced where I was like, okay, I'm like, but that's what their question is. So can you play along? And I could feel this energy of like, oh, fine. And it was like, and I was like, what do you want from me to do? Like, it was the first time I really but this is where it was like this kind of conversation back and forth. Like, he was quick to answer it because he didn't want to be doing. He didn't want to be.
H, if he didn't want to play the game on the other side, what are you doing here? Because we're playing the game. We got to play the game.
We have to, like,
we'll have a good attitude.
Man. Yeah. Have a good attitude. Like, God. I'm like, what do you want from me? It's how I'm learning.
And he knows exactly how you're meant to learn. But I guess that's why he did it. I don't know.
He gets frustrated. And then when we were doing like the weekly card readings, and I remember I'd be like, okay, man, like, it doesn't have to always be the bigger picture. Can you just bring it down to surface level?
The human
level. Like, this is what we're dealing with. And so I'd just be like, God, calm down. Let's be relatable, man.
That's it, right? We got to be relatable, H.
Yes, I will play your game. Like I will do, and I do the philosophical and the higher, bigger picture, but then you got to play mine too, man. It's got to be both.
Yeah.
Another way is like, okay, so recognizing that you're doing it is like, if you talk to yourself in your mind and hear answers back. So if you're like, I'm always talking to myself in my mind, you remember things that people say word for word, is one. Receive
to tell if you're, so this is to tell if you're clairaudient.
Yeah, if you're using your clairaudience, or it's kind of like comes more naturally to you.
Yeah.
Receive inspiration through lyrics or hear repeated phrases over and over, like duh. The other one is like hearing tones or buzzing.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So the buzzing are high frequencies with no physical source.
Yeah.
That could mean it's activating or it's leveling up, or I've heard the buzzing where it's all of a sudden I hear this like switch in my ear go and it's like either hi or you're like, what? Yeah. Which is super cool.
That's a good indication that your clairaudience is activating for sure, is that high pitched sound that we sometimes hear.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So clairaudience can also feel like an idea. Did you just say that?
An idea? What are you saying?
Okay. So clairaudience can also feel like an idea with sound. So like hearing a solution come fully formed into your mind, not figuring it out step by step. Like you just kind of like receive the guidance, the solution, I guess, without having to work it out step by step. As most of us do, it's just kind of like plopped into it's just told to you. It's just like whispered,
do this. Yeah. Well, and I think like, because there's like when you are going into meditation and you're like intentionally connecting and reading energy and stuff, like it's going to come in, but like during the day, right, and you're doing your things, and all of a sudden you just get some random like thought. Like an example was, I was driving through a McDonald's, and I was just like waiting to get my food, and I saw, or I heard, some fire trucks go by, and then boom, plopped into my head. It was like, turn left. And I was like, so basically telling me when I pull out of the McDonald's, go left instead of right, because I always go right. And I hate going left because you're having to go across traffic. And so of course this just plopped in, and then my mind, or I was like, why would I do that? I'm like, I hate going that way. And I'm like, no, I'm going to go the other way. And then it was like, you're going to get caught up in whatever just got, the accident. And I was like, oh no, the odds of it being down the small little street that I go down to make my way over. I said, so I'm sitting there. So clairaudiently, intuitively, the messages was being plopped. They were saying, do this, or this is going to happen. My ego, my own brain stepped in and was rationalizing, and being like, this is dumb, that's silly. Sure enough, I go my way, I turn down this narrow street and I go right into stop traffic. The accident was there, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, and I already was like, you don't even need to say it, man. And then I heard told you so. And then I was like, whatever, I don't care, I'm fine, I'll just sit here peacefully. But I was like, damn it,
I'll eat my car fries.
Yeah, I'll eat my car fries while I'm sitting here. But I was like, damn it. And it's like, it's that stuff that like happens, and then you don't listen to it, because again, it just sounds like thoughts in your head. And then you're rationalizing it.
Yeah. So if you're somebody like Allison who argues with yourself constantly, you're probably not arguing with yourself. You're arguing with spirit. But I remember I have a very clear example too. And I've shared this earlier in the podcast years ago.
Yeah.
When I first started developing, and I was starting to try to pay attention to how my guidance was coming in. And I had, I was walking from my car into Walmart, and I was chewing gum, and I was like, so I was thinking about, where am I going to spit my gum out? And I was focusing on the garbage can that was like by the door. I was looking at it. I'm like, that's my plan. I'm walking towards this garbage can, and I hear in my head, you dropped or where's your bank card? And then I was like, oh, My bank card's in my
Do I have my
wallet.
bank card?
Yeah. And then as I looked in my wallet, it wasn't there. I'm like, it's in my back pocket. And I'm like, no, it's not in my back pocket. And I was like already halfway to the store and I looked back at my car and then I heard go back to the car. And I was like, so I look at the car and I'm like, is the bank card on the ground right like between me and the car? And I'm like, I can't see it. And I was going to continue to keep walking.
Yeah, because I'd
But
be
I
annoyed.
decided to listen to it. And I went back to my car and sure enough, my debit card was sitting on the ground outside of my door. And I was like, oh, that was my Claire. So cool. I was so excited
Oh my
that I listened
God.
to it first of all. But so anyways, I saved my card because, you have that tap feature. Anybody can just pick up your card
Just
and
go
go
and do it.
tappity tap
Yeah.
and buy all their groceries for the week.
Yeah.
And anyway, so that was
And it's so cool, like how
yeah.
that kind of comes in. And I think that's where it's like, that's the hardest part is like, trusting it, listening to it, and even having enough space in your head to receive it.
Yeah.
Right. I had one of our students in class tell me it's a clear example of having too much clutter in your head versus releasing it. So she had lost her phone. She couldn't find where her phone was. And she was like, oh my God, like, just, when you're in your head and you're like, where the hell did I put it? And you just have all these thoughts, like you're like racing, going like, what did I do? Where was I last? What was I doing? All these things. Right. So it was like going from room to room, couldn't find it. Was like, what the hell? Like all of a sudden. And then she finally just stopped and was like, oh, okay, I'm just going to anchor in, just going to clear my head. Cause she said she'd remembered something we had said on the podcast about this.
Yeah.
And so she stopped, she cleared her head, and she instantly heard it's in the couch pillows. And she went over, sure enough, it was right there. So it was like, and I'm like, but it's like, you can see that visually, right? You can see that in her head, there was so much going on that there was no room to hear,
to receive.
And then the moment she like stopped and let that all come out, it was like, spirit was like, okay, thank you. Because they want to be heard.
They do.
It seems like they're just kind of like, I'm important here, and until you make time for me, I'm not showing up. And then it was like, here, I will clear space. And then they came in and they're literally like, it's right here, now go get it. If you just did this to begin with, we wouldn't have wasted time. I just like feel like that's where they're kind of like, okay, how long is this going to be while this person's like
well, that's actually one of the first ways that you can begin to strengthen and practice your clairaudience is to create the time and space for silence. Because I think we talked about this previously too, where everybody gets all their busy thoughts at nighttime when they go to bed and they can't sleep because their mind is racing. It's because we haven't taken the time during the day to clear our thoughts in our minds and just sit in silence to let that all clear away. And it's not like you have to sit in silence and think about all the things that you would be thinking about at bedtime. It's just sitting in silence and just allowing it all to release. So think the thoughts, and then release the thoughts. But that's how you're going to create the space to hear the intuitive whispers that are coming in. So you don't have to have a huge practice, even if you're just sitting in the car waiting for your kid to finish at whatever activity they're doing.
Absolutely.
5 minutes just to focus on your breathing and clearing your thoughts.
Yeah. Well, like the intuitive challenges that we do on Instagram and TikTok, all the things. It's like, even in that moment, it's like, it's not a big thing. Like, it's not like, oh, let's go in and do our grounding, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, okay, I'm just going to literally pause. I'm going to focus just on this. And I'm just going to like, imagine my head clearing and then just being like, come on in. Right. Yeah. It's just that taking some deep breaths and just like releasing whatever's in your head so that you have room to have it come in.
Yeah.
I need to do that a lot more because I'm constantly talking to myself.
So another way that you can practice this, your clairaudience is to try channeled or automatic writing, like Allison was saying. Quite often when we're, anchored into the energy and we are in our place of nature, we're in meditation, we'll just start writing. And then when we start writing, more and more and more and more comes. And again, you'll know when you're automatic writing, you just have to release the expectation, first of all, of receiving anything, especially when you first start doing it. Excuse me, my throat chakra is killing me. But we tell all of our students at the beginning, when you're doing any type of practice, you have to release expectation of receiving anything, and you have to release judgment of what you receive or what you don't receive. Right.
Absolutely.
So if you go in and be like, I'm just going to do this, I don't care what happens, I'm just going to do this. That's the first step into practicing anything with intuition. But automatic writing, you'll kind of get a sense of like how fast it's coming in, how like philosophical it might sound, or maybe it's nothing like that at all, and that's okay too. So just again, try not to judge where you're at with any of it.
No. And try not to I think a big one with receiving your intuition in general. So if you're like trying to read the energy of somebody or something, it's not having it go through a filter system, your own filter system. So having it like whatever's coming in, like receive that. It may not make sense to you, but it can make sense to the person that you're reading. And I think that's a huge one. Because once it starts to go through our filter and be like, well, that doesn't fit here because this is what I've been receiving. So I'm like in my mind creating, like getting an understanding of what spirit's trying to say to me. And then all of a sudden something comes in that doesn't fit maybe my narrative. And it's just like, don't ignore that. Like if it came out of the blue, like you freaking write that down, right? Like it's always like, write that down. Like it doesn't have to make sense. Like whatever's kind of, you have a weird word pop in, write it down. Like, again, a student was reading Betty, and she got like pink nose, but then in her head, it didn't make sense because she was like, pink nose, like what? Like, is there another dog? Like what's, and it didn't make it easy to just dismiss it and be like, oh, I was just thinking that, or something like that. Well, no, that made sense because just a few weeks, or not even a few weeks, like a week ago, I was talking with my parents and we were talking about one of my family childhood dogs, and she had a pink nose. And so that was Betty's way of saying that she was with Holly on the other side. I know. But it's like those things where you've created, you've heard these things are coming in, and then you're like,
what? Don't judge them.
That doesn't fit in this narrative. Like, I'm going to keep it out. So with automatic writing, it's like, whatever's coming in, just do it. And yes, not everything's going to make sense, but it's not for you to decipher.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Which is really cool. Ask for audio signs. So ask your guides to send you messages in song. So I've heard of a few people like doing that, where they will be like, ask a question and then like press like shuffle or whatever, or like turn on the radio. Yeah. And then they will speak to you.
I love that game, by the way.
I love that game. That's a fun one.
It's like pulling a card kind of, because then
I love the card. Yeah.
But I also like the idea of asking for guidance through like audibly through lyrics, but you also even like overhearing other people's conversations. Not that you're eavesdropping on everybody.
Wow, but Mandy.
There's certain times where somebody's conversation just piques your interest, or it's just like it's just makes sense for you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then that's kind of like guidance as well that you're receiving audibly from spirit, but just through other people. Like they're just sending it to you indirectly. But whatever.
Everybody's going to be eavesdropping now.
Well, you can't eavesdrop on purpose. It has to be like
yes.
There has to be a word that pings for you to start paying attention, and then you're like, that makes so much sense for me. So
absolutely. Yeah. Because once you start to kind of like narrow in, and you're just like, is that for me? Is that for me?
Yeah, you know what I mean? They're creepers with the glass on the wall.
What's happening over there? I'm like, guidance? You go out with your friends and they're like, can you stop listening to everybody else and just talk to me? And you're like, I'm going to do the people behind me, beside me.
You're going to be known as like the nosy neighbor. You're just like, is that for me? No,
for me?
Not for you. Not everything's for you, Allison.
It's not all about you. I love that. I know. Anything else? I guess like sometimes it's when people talk about like, how is it my anxious thoughts? Like so many people will talk about, because I know like for somebody, as myself, who has had anxiety disorder since I was a teenager, and panic attacks, there can be a constant narrative of like, what if this happens? What if
That's
that
your
happens?
ego.
And that's your ego. And so, but a lot of people will be like, how do you know if it's your intuition trying to warn you versus like, especially when they are somebody that constantly is like, oh God, what if they get into a car accident? Oh, what if this happens? And all of that. And I've gotten stuck in that too, going like, oh my God, like what if it's like my warning, or am I just in my mind loop, my anxiety mind
Because
loop?
the difference in the frequency when it's in like we said earlier, the intuition comes in as a very calm, matter of fact statement. There's no question afterwards. It is just go left.
Yeah.
There's nothing
so blunt.
Yeah, go left. Or, you know what I mean? When you're in that mind loop and you're what if, that is absolutely fear-based and full of anxiety. Like you said, that's coming from your ego. That's coming from the place that's trying to keep you safe. So like the ego isn't necessarily a bad thing, but that's not what we want to be guided by. Because if we're guided by our ego, then we're not experiencing life, because it's keeping us like suppressed in a sense. Like I have a story, like I know I know somebody who's quite fear-based and they live their life. This is not you, Allison, just kidding.
This isn't you, Allison, just kidding. It is you.
No,
here we go.
I'm just kidding to tease you, but
I know.
you. But it's somebody, and then I've seen that they they have programmed their children to feel the same way, like I don't want to do this because this could happen, or because this could happen. So thinking about jobs in the future, right? There is potential to do a job, but there's all these little sub jobs that they could do, and it's a significant job, right? So you could, I'm not going to say what it is, because then I don't like, if I don't know if this person listens to the podcast, but I don't want them to feel like I'm making this is a bad thing. It's just where they're at, right? But then anyway, so there's this big job, and then there's all these little sub jobs that they could do, and they've chosen out of all the little jobs that they do one specific one because it's the safest. They couldn't do any harm to themselves or to anybody else in this sub job, whereas the other job has a little bit more risk, but also has a lot more reward.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So it's like, it's fear or anxiety. It's the ego.
It's anxiety based.
Yeah.
And anyway, so when we live from that space, when we live from that fear-based space, from your ego space, it keeps us held back from experiencing so many different things. And it can be little things and it could be big things, like little life choices and big life choices. It can really determine the path that you're on. So I think it's also very important to recognize how often we sit and drive from the space of our ego, where we make the decisions based from the space of our ego versus from intuition. And I think that's what we're moving into New Earth. Is part of that, obviously, is going to be living more from your heart space, your intuition, as opposed to living in that fear-based ego space.
Yeah. So it's like, is your inner chatter mostly coming from the fear ego side, or is your inner chatter coming from your kind of intuitive higher self led? And if it's not, then it's like, how can you start to recognize and be cognitive, or like start like kind of coming to that realization and being like, oh my God, yeah, I think I'm more in that like ego fear-based chatter that's happening all the time, narrating behind the scenes as I go through life. Shoot, I don't want that. I want to start shifting it. So it's like, again, once you become aware of something, then you can then you are aware of it in the moment, and you start to recognize it, and it starts to be so blaring, right? Just like I said, me singing all the time, I wasn't aware of it. Now that I'm aware of it, I'm like, holy shit, Allison, shut up. I'm like, happen all the time.
People love your singing.
Well, not when it's like you say like, oh, stop. And I'm like, in the name.
I love it when you do that. I do that in my head too, but I don't know the lyrics.
Oh,
I just hear the sounds, and then I'm not a very good singer, so I don't like, you know what I mean. But
it's constant.
It's fun. It's
especially
fun.
when you can predict what one I'm gonna say. That's when it gets really bad.
We should do I'm gonna do that to you.
I know, where you're like,
together.
Oh, knew this was coming. This was coming. There's one that I do. I don't know what the song is again, but my partner, I guess I didn't realize I did it every time. And he's like, oh, knew that one was coming. Knew that one was coming. And I was like, oh God, oh no.
I love that.
Shit. So I think like summarizing that up, like, so if the voice uplifts, guides, or speaks with kindness, or it's likely intuitive.
Yeah.
And if the voice feels pressured, panicked, or judgmental, it's likely fear-based, right?
Yeah.
When we like hold here, ego, fear-based. One of the most important practices is discernment. So learning to trust the voice of your spirit over the voice of your fear.
I love that.
I know. I'll say it again.
Statement.
I'm going to say it again. One of the most important practices is discernment, learning to trust the voice of your spirit over the voice of your fear. I need to tap into that a bit more.
It's hard during your day to stay focused on it, but I think the more you do it, the easier it gets. That's what I've noticed for myself anyway. And meditation is one of the first things that you can do to start quieting or releasing the clutter from your brain, so you have space to receive. But yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, I think so.
We'll be back next week with the riffraff.
The riffraff players. Join that one.
That's
the stinky one. What other ones is there?
The Clairaudience is the taste or the smell. There's taste and smell, basically.
Taste and smell. And I think I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah.
And we should apologize for, okay, get this.
What?
So we started to edit our podcast.
Oh yeah. My God.
And it's like sounding worse. Like I feel like our like the voices are clearer, like the audio is clearer, but when two people speak at once, it gets all muffled and then they drop words and you're like,
and when we laugh, that's the thing.
And the funnest part of our podcast is when we laugh together.
Yeah. And so like you start listening and all of a sudden it just goes silent and you're like, if you're watching, if
nobody's laughing with us anymore.
Nobody's laughing. No, because we're like,
so
and like if you're watching, you can see we're laughing, but if you're just listening, you cannot.
We weren't even like editing. Like we were just putting it in a program that was supposed to make it clearer.
Yeah, and sound.
So we could add the trailer in, or the intro in, but
then have like all of the one thing I did like was like on YouTube where it breaks down
the chapters.
The chapters and stuff. I love that. But you know what? No. I would rather have our cackles heard loud and clear than the chapters.
I agree.
I know. So hopefully we'll see if this one's better not using it.
Yeah. Let us know.
Yes, let us know. And yeah, definitely check out our Instagram, Soul Star Energy Collective, our website, Soul Star Energy Collective. And just, like we offer, helping others connect to their intuition. So intuitive development, guidance. Yeah. We offer intuitive readings and some healings and just a bunch of things. So yeah, there you go.
All right. We will see you next week. I mean, wait, yes, we will see.
What? Ended in style. I love it. Bye.
Bye.